A bit of a funny start to this edition of the show. You could call it a silly start, whatever you may. But yeah, I actually started running the Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia commercial, one of our official sponsors of the show and on the network. Ran the intro, looked on YouTube to see if the stream started, just to make sure we're up and running, and thinking I already started the stream, but that didn't end up being the case. So we've started it now about 5 minutes late from when we were supposed to air this edition of the Manitoba Female Hockey League podcast. But I'm just happy to be here in all honesty, on this Monday afternoon, or I guess early Monday evening now. It's 5:23 currently on this Monday, October 6th date in 2025. MFHL fans, it's been quite a fun start to the season getting to cover this league. Welcome in to this edition of the MFHL podcast. Week 2 officially wrapped up yesterday. Week 3 is going to be starting with Ice versus Selects coming up on Wednesday night this week, a game that we're going to be covering on our network as well, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, just taking a look at how the past week of scores ended up going. This ended up being on Friday, October 3rd, where Central Plains, with a huge victory, spoiling the Pembina Valley Hawks season opener, as Pembina Valley got going a bit later. Well, actually the latest compared to all the teams in the MFHL, as they were actually down in North Dakota this past weekend, taking on a collegiate program. But yeah, Pembina Valley, and we also see the Avros getting it done in a 2-1 shootout over the Westman Wildcats on Friday night, as well as there were only 2 games in the league that were at play. Saturday, a bit different in terms of how the scores look, though. Crazy trend, 3 shutouts from all of the victors, so a shout out for each of them. A game that we were able to broadcast on our network, Avros and Hawks. It was the Avros who just continued to take over as that game went along and made it a tough afternoon for Hannah Bannister. There was also some milestones from the Avros, which we'll get to coming up a bit in this podcast later on. As for the Eastman Selects, the defending champions, they're looking really darn good to start things off this year, and they continued their winning ways on Sunday. We'll get to that in just a moment. But yeah, 6-0 victory to start off their week 2 against a feisty Interlake Lightning team. As for the Winnipeg Ice, they're looking really good to start off this year. One of the few undefeated teams to start off the first few weeks, and one of those victories, of course, being the 4-0 win they had over Yellowhead, playing in a tough place as well in Shoal Lake. A nice 2 points earned for the Ice on Saturday. As for on Sunday, they'd earn another 2 points, although it was closer on the scoreboard this time around. 3-2, they would end up winning over the Westman Wildcats. As for the Eastman Selects, given maybe Central Plains a bit of a reality check with a 6-1 victory, as Eastman flexed their muscle there. And as for the Interlake Lightning, talked about how, hey, they may not have the most skill compared to some of the teams in the MFHL on their rosters, but if they come ready to play and they compete, they'll give you a whole lot of trouble, and that's exactly what they did against Pembina Valley this past Sunday, yesterday, I guess, winning 4-2 to end off their second weekend of the MFHL season strongly. As we take a look at the standings here, only 2 undefeated teams, so the Eastman Selects and the Winnipeg Ice both undefeated through their first 3 games of the season. The only team that's winless so far are the Pembina Valley Hawks at 0-3. They're, of course, going to be looking to get back into the win column, getting into it for the first time this upcoming weekend in some Thanksgiving weekend action here in the MFHL's regular season. But teams with 3 wins so far, the Selects, Avros, and ice, the Central Plains Capitals in the middle of the pack too, with a 2-2 record to start things off. The Westman Wildcats right behind them. Will be interesting to see how the standings will shake out as the season starts to and continues to progress in the Manitoba Female U18 AAA Hockey League, which, by the way, if you want to check out full standings, stats, scores, whatever else, MFHL U18 AAA.com is the place to go to. We're going to throw it to a commercial break, and then we're going to be back to take a look at the opening weekend of action from the MFHL, as we got highlights from opening night from Niverville between the Eastman Selects and Westman Wildcats and their season openers. We also have highlights from Ice Avros, which ended off week 1 on Tuesday night last week. And then we'll go into the highlights from Avros, Pembina Valley, the Hawks, as they were in Winnipeg, of course, as you saw, to take on the Avros on Saturday. And for one player in Rui Folster, she ended up having quite a milestone late afternoon there against the Pembina Valley Hawks, a milestone game in that afternoon contest against PV. So yeah, we'll get into that. We'll also show you the week 1 award winners from throughout the league, as this season they're adding a category, and not just top offensive player and defensive player, but it's going to be top forward, top defenseman, and top goaltender this year. We'll get to who the league ended up choosing in that list of categories, as well as plenty more on this edition of the MFHL podcast on Season 3. Episode 4 brought to you by Goaltenders, Elite Prospects, Terraco Movement, Fitness and Performance, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia.
Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store.
And welcome back to this edition of the Manitoba Female U18 AAA Hockey League podcast on G-Show Productions, presented by Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Terraco, Goaltenders, Elite Prospects, and Movement, Fitness, and Performance. As for our coverage on this edition of the MFHL podcast, we've gotten into how the past week of action went in week number 1, or in week number 2. As for week number 1 in the league, ended up seeing some matchups in there that were close. Some teams ran away with a few of their matchups too. Saturday ended up seeing Sunday on the 28th ended up seeing 2 close wins. One from the Westman Wildcats, where they won 3-0 against the Central Plains Capitals, and then the Yellowhead Chiefs winning 2-0 over the Interlake Lightning, bouncing back after losing 3-2 in a shootout to the Central Plains Capitals. And shout out to Central Plains so far for hanging with and competing with the usual favorites in this league. Strong programs in the past from Yellowhead, Westman. I mean, that game from this past Sunday was 3-0. Yes, a win for Westman, but all three of those goals came in the third period. So Central Plains has been playing some of the best teams in the MFHL. Tough here so far. Of course, not the result they would like against the Eastman Selects, where they lost 6-1 yesterday. But hey, the Eastman Selects, they are probably the standard in this league heading into this season, and have proven that they remain the gold standard so far, at least for the opening 2 weeks. As for us at G-Show Productions, we were actually down in Niverville, Manitoba, now 2 Saturdays ago for that home and season opener for the Eastman Selects, and of course season opener for the Westman Wildcats, as it was opening day in the MFHL on September 27th. We had the pleasure of covering one of 3 games that were in action that day, and we thought it was just so fitting to be back in Niverville, Manitoba, where we ended up broadcasting our last MFHL game day live stream of the year in the playoffs last year between the Winnipeg Avros and the Eastman Selects. And as for the Selects, with the team that has so much returning talent to it, with their eyes set on defending their championship and looking to go back-to-back, they potentially could have had their hands full on opening night against a Westman Wildcats team that had gone undefeated in the Central Plains Capital Showcase the weekend before, led by arguably the most talented player in the MFHL this season, coming in Ivy Perkin, and just a whole lot more to like on their squad this year. Of course, being led by a really good coaching staff too, with head coach Carissa Kirkup. And in this game, it stayed close for a while on the scoreboard, but for the Eastman Selects, flexing their muscle on opening night and showing Westman what this year's team is truly all about to start things off. As we look back into the first period of action, when Eastman's actually on a power play here, they're able to work it up to the point, strong on the forecheck. It'll be worked across to Blake Haas, who will find a wide open Shanscott Cook at the side of the net, as the third year Eastman Select now gets herself on the board for the first time this season. As for Eastman, they carried that 1-0 lead into the second period on another advantage in the Westman zone, this time even strength, of course, but advantage off the face-off, winning that, getting that to the net, and it would be rookie Emily Carrier who would put it in. But Westman wouldn't go away during that second period, as the Wildcats, strong forechecking down low, forcing a turnover and getting this to the slot, where Smith would end up putting this home, number 11 for this year's Westman Wildcats team, to cut the lead down to 1 again. But later on in the third period, Isabella Carrier would end up wiring that one home, firing it past Indigo Stone, as the Eastman Selects would end up adding on one more, winning their first matchup of the season by a score of 3, 4-1 over the Westman Wildcats. As for our next game that we ended up covering, our second game of the season, it was to end off week number 1's coverage with, what better way to do so than an all-Winnipeg matchup in the Winnipeg Avros taking on the Winnipeg Ice. The Ice were the, second last team to get going, as Pembina Valley, as mentioned, didn't play any games throughout the first weekend of the regular season and throughout the first week, but Winnipeg was in action. The Ice were. They were available to do so, as they didn't have university games on their schedule compared to Pembina Valley, right? But they took on a Winnipeg Avros team which was coming off of a 5-0 victory on their opening day victory against the Interlake Lightning on Saturday. And as for Eugene Kaminsky and this year's Winnipeg Ice team, they were up for the challenge. And in actually asking Eugene Kaminsky a few days after about the game, he felt that it was one of the most complete teams he's seen his Winnipeg Ice teams play, and that was fully on display for sure, as it was also National Truth and Reconciliation Day, in honor of the survivors and those that we have lost to atrocities, residential schools, and just abuse throughout time, the Indigenous community. But as for the Winnipeg Ice, they get it going on the power play to go up 1-0 in this one. The Ice wouldn't allow many shots in the first period, but out of the few that they ended up letting up against, it would be Vivian Seawalk, who would end up tying the game at 1 apiece with a nice backhand shot to put it past number 30 in Gina Pled. But later on into the second period, the Winnipeg Ice doing a really good job in this one of getting to the high danger areas like the slot and the front of the Avros net. It would be Marin Temple that would get in front for a tip shot off of the shot from Texiera and into the back of the net. And with that, the Winnipeg Ice, they outshot the Winnipeg Avros by quite a bit in that hockey game as well. They'd move on to win 3-1 as they'd add on another goal in the third period, which would be from Talia Jones, assisted by Claire Hudson and Gabby Robbins. But yeah, the Ice, I don't really think Eugene Kaminsky is telling many lies. That was also one of the most dominant performances I've seen them put up against a quality team in the Winnipeg Avros. And maybe it's just the experience, the continuity that the Ice have more so compared to the Avros heading into this year that helped them out in this early regular season game. In fact, their opener of the year, right? But it looked like at times the Winnipeg Ice were in mid-season form in that game. They did everything that they wanted to against a good Winnipeg Avros team. They took away the Avros transition, made it tough for them to get to the inside in the Ice's defensive zone. Gina Plett settled down in this game and ends up making about 17 or 16 straight saves after letting up that goal against Seawalk. And yeah, the Ice were able to get to transition well. Their forecheck and cycle game looks strong. And if you tuned into that matchup, we didn't show it on the highlights, but they were able to break out not only quickly, but with ease so many times in this game. It was fluid from the Ice. It was a dominant performance. And even though they only put up 3 goals, they had 41 shots and just continued to pressure and fire away at this Winnipeg Avros team. And if this is how the Winnipeg Ice look now, and still continue to be strong in their next 2 games afterwards, right? Defeating the Yellowhead Chiefs by a score of 4-0 in a tough place to play, and then in a team in the Westman Wildcats, who they have a lot of skill and will challenge the top teams, as I believe they'll be a contender this season. The Ice are able to come out with a close victory there, so showcasing they can win in many ways, but on opening night, it's pure dominance from the Winnipeg Ice, who, yeah, get the better of the Avros in the all-Winnipeg rivalry. As for the Winnipeg Avros, though, it seemed like they put it behind them quickly. They were rolling into this past weekend with a 1-1 record, and of course took on the Westman Wildcats on Friday night, where they would end up winning in a shootout. And as for the Avros, that was actually their home opener. They were feeling really good heading into Saturday afternoon's affair against the Pembina Valley Hawks, where, as mentioned, they saw, well, one milestone in particular, in number 13 in Rory Falster, who ended up, well, see for yourself the performance she ends up having, as they were already up 3-0 at this point. The Winnipeg Avros working it towards the net and taking in that rebound, putting it in to the cage. The open net was Rory Falster for her first game of the afternoon. Shortly after, the Avros attacking once again. This time, Folster will let a shot rip past Hannah Bannister for her second of the game. But after Brea Kapusta scored shortly afterwards, Folster wasn't quite satisfied with her goal total. As for Folster, get this puck once again and backhand this past Bannister for her first career hat trick in the MFHL. It would extend the Avros' lead to 7. They'd add one more goal in the third period to, shut out the Pembina Valley Hawks, as it was an 8-0 victory in favor of that Avros side. And, I mean, Ashley Van Egelen, I guess she knows as well as anyone, there's a lot of perks when you're able to coach in Winnipeg, because the talent that's come into this program has just been significant throughout the years. And it's also a testament to Ashley Van Egelen, even though her and Eugene Kaminsky have the strongest areas to pick out of, she always seems to find the best quality out of these players. And that's no different this year with rookies in Rui Folster, Vivian Seawalk, two players that have made significant impacts for this team. But you also look at a player in Brea Kapusta, who she had a multi-point game and has looked really good alongside a player in, in terms of Folster this season and the other rookies this team has. It's just another strong Avros team all across the board. And even though they didn't face that many shots in that game on Saturday, like Anya Cohen-Howen, rookie goaltender this year, which, not sure how many starts she'll get come playoff time, because Adriana Almeida, I'm sure she's looking to, of course, solidify herself as a starter. But just looking at this year's Avros squad with them losing Madeline Sylvester, you thought, what is the goaltending situation going to look like? Because that was one of the top tandems in the league last season. Well, so far, Anya Cohen-Howen is, leaving really little doubt in anyone's mind that not only is this goaltending tandem strong again for the Avros, but we could start to talk about it being maybe even better than last year's goaltending tandem that they had. Cohen-Howen has 2 victories with 2 shutouts this season. And looked really good when she had to against Pembina Valley this past Saturday. As for the Winnipeg Avros, the next time they're going to be in action will be on this Sunday. They get Friday and Saturday off. They'll be in action in Stonewall at the Veterans Memorial Complex to take on the Interlake Lightning at 4:30 p.m. that day. As for, another player to talk about for the Winnipeg Avros, as we take a look at the Week 1 award winners. Congratulations to Callie Lavalley on taking home forward of the week in Week 1, having 3 points against the Interlake Lightning. And Callie has looked really strong to start off this season. Look for her to be, by the end of it, I think, considered one of the top 5 players in this league overall this year. As now going into a second season for herself. Blake Hawes, another returnee on this list. Same with Indigo Stone. Hawes nominated and recognized for Defenseman of the Week in Week 1 and ends up taking those honors home, as well as Indigo Stone getting recognized and taking top goalie honors home, as she was really strong in that opening weekend. Same with Hawes. As the Week 1 awards, you can check them out at MFHL@U18AAA.com. They also post them on their social media pages. In terms of the stat lines from the players in the MFHL to start off the year, Eastman selects leading goal scorer from last year, Delaney Rigaud. Hasn't missed a beat to start off this year. 6 goals, 2 assists for 8 points, the most out of anyone in the MFHL. Emily Carrier, rookie, benefiting from the great talent she's played with, sure, but really showcasing how much of a natural talent she's been. She's been fun to watch every time we've seen her on the network so far this year. She's tied with, Ivy Perkin, who is our MVP pick, if you missed that, we chose Ivy to win MVP this year in our preview for the 2025-2026 season, as we gave out our picks for who we think takes home major awards and who wins this year's championship, who makes it to the finals, most improved team, stuff like that, right? But yeah, here's a look at the top 10. Quite a few Ice, Avros, and Selects on this list. Perkin, the lone Wildcat. As for the goaltenders, yeah, as mentioned, Cohen Howen, 2 wins, 2 shutouts. Gina Plett for the Ice. She's been strong to start off this year. Same with the goaltending tandem for the Eastman Selects, which we see Addison Tomes and Isabelle Labosse on this list too. For full stats, as mentioned, check out the MFHL's website at mfhlu18AAA.com. As for how this weekend of action is going to be shaping up for MFHL hockey, there's going to be a game on Wednesday, Winnipeg Ice taking on the Eastman Selects. We're going to have that game on G-Show Productions. Be sure to check it out, as puck will drop at 7:30 p.m. Not sure we'll have much of a pregame show, as we're going to be in Steinbach as well before that game starts to broadcast. The College Belleville Barracudas taking on the Steinbach Regional Sabres in our first ever Winnipeg High School Hockey League game day broadcast. Super excited for that, but mark your calendars, MFHL fans. We will have Winnipeg Ice taking on the Eastman Selects in what should be a doozy on this Wednesday night. No games on Thursday, going to be a doubleheader on Friday. Central Plains, the Capitals, back at home at BDO, Center for the Community, take on the Interlake Lightning at 7:30 p.m. Just before that, at 7:15 p.m., the Ice at home to take on the Westman Wildcats at 7:15, in a game which we will also have on our Uscreen service. Be sure to check it out if you're unable to make it to the game. And yeah, I believe that's going to be all, except for, no, we got one more game day broadcast coming up on Saturday, October 11th, on this year's Thanksgiving weekend. We'll be in Niverville, as the Eastman Selects will be taking on the Central Plains Capitals. At 1:45 p.m., puck will drop. Then we'll have our pregame show coverage starting about 10 minutes before puck drop, around 1:35 p.m. But as for the other matchups happening on Thanksgiving Saturday, the Pembina Valley Hawks at home in Morden take on the Winnipeg Ice at 4:30 p.m. They're looking to get into the win column for the first time. What a way to get into the win column if you're able to beat a team like the Winnipeg Ice. As for the Interlake Lightning, they're also still searching to get into the win column. They're searching for their second win of the season, as they just recently beat the Pembina Valley Hawks. They'll be taking on a tough opponent in the Westman Wildcats at 8 p.m. at Veterans Memorial Sports Complex. And then on Sunday, there is going to be a triple header. No games broadcasted from us, but hey, still a lot to look forward to on that Thanksgiving Sunday, as the Winnipeg Ice 12:15 game at home at the Hockey for All Center against the Central Plains Capitals. The Westman Wildcats will be in Morden at 2:30 p.m. to take on the Pembina Valley Hawks at the Access Event Center. And the Winnipeg Avros go on the road to take on the Interlake Lightning at 4:30 p.m. this Thanksgiving Sunday at the Veterans Memorial Sports Complex. There's going to be no weekday games coming up next week. The only games we're actually going to see on Saturday and Sunday after Thanksgiving weekend are going to be Yellowhead Chiefs and Westman Wildcats in a home and home going up against each other. But yeah, if you want to check out the full schedule, full stats, scores, whatever else, MFHLU18AAA.com is your best friend for that. And we're also going to keep you up to date on this podcast this season with what's happening around the league, our thoughts on games that we cover, and all that good stuff to keep you all entertained, Manitoba Hockey League fans. But yeah, we're going to throw it to, I think, one more commercial break here. We're going to show you Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia's commercial again, and then I'm going to finish off with some final words here on this edition of the show. Stay with us for Season 3, Episode 4, as we wrap things up here shortly.
Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store.
Well, you've made it to the end of this edition of the MFHL podcast. Yeah, thanks for taking the time and tuning in, MFHL fans. We've been brought to you by Goaltenders, Terrico, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Movement, Fitness, and Performance, and Elite Prospects. Elite Prospects, by the way, if you want to check out past stats from teams in the MFHL, it's one of the best places to do so because, with the game sheets now, it kind of updates from year to year. They don't keep the data, and I know the MFHL, it's not fully updated there yet. So if you want to take a look back at how these players fared, Elite Prospects would be the place to see. And then you get to take a look at maybe if they posted stats from their previous teams heading into the MFHL, how truly good, some of these players are, as we got, at least here in this province, potential superstars and legends that continue to join this league year in and year out. As for the talent that we've seen in this league so far this year, it's been really fun to watch. A few teams in particular, as mentioned, it's been great to see the rookie talent for these teams stepping up, as well as the vets making their presence felt and contributing big time. And for us, with 2 games coming up this upcoming weekend, we can't wait to bring you some more great action. We got one more podcast for the MFHL podcast coming out this week too, so a bit of a double dose for you to make up for last week. As always want to give you our best, and felt like delaying this episode until today would give you the best podcast viewing / listening experience. But busy week ahead for us. We got Winnipeg High School Hockey League games on the schedule, MFHL games on the schedule, Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League games on the schedule. Busy Thanksgiving weekend too, with family dinners and stuff. I got a fantasy hockey draft that I'm going to be doing right away. And we got the Manitoba Hockey Podcast coming out tonight, as well as the Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League podcast coming out tomorrow. Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy podcast coming out on Wednesday, and then on Friday, after the next edition of the MFHL podcast drops, we're going to hit you with another edition of Scholastics, as our programming continues to ramp up here on G-Show Productions, on your gateway to hockey here in the province of Manitoba. Until I see you next time, though, on Thursday, MFHL fans, we do have a game on Wednesday night. Eastman in Winnipeg to take on the Winnipeg Ice. It should be, well, as I always like to say, a fun one. Hope you tune in and support not only us, but the league on that night and all season long. But as for me, enough of my rambling for right now. It's Graeme the G-Show Forsyth. Peacing out and waving so long, everybody. Enjoy the great hockey coming your way this week and this weekend. Enjoy what should be a great Thanksgiving weekend. Hope you have, a lot of fun the rest of the way this week. Graeme the G-Show Forsyth saying so long. Take care, everybody.